New Year's Eve after losing someone we love is the hardest. For billionaire Damon Sterling, 40 years had been unbearable. To escape the pain, he went to work at his office during the last week of the year. This was new for him. He was used to partying in Aspen in style, but now he just wanted silence. The silence on the 40th floor of Sterling Enterprises wasn't just the absence of sound, it was a physical weight, an invisible, suffocating entity pressing Damon Sterling's shoulders against the back of his Italian leather chair. The leather creaked under the weight of his tense body, a sound that echoed like a weary sigh in the vast, meticulously arranged room. Damon stares at his own reflection in the panoramic tempered glass window. First Christmas. They say in self-help books that the first one is the worst, but nobody warns you that the silence screams so loud it makes your ears ring. Outside, 30 stories below, New York was a spectacle of glittering lights and snow falling in slow motion. It was a living painting of festive joy that seemed to mock his solitude. The city pulsed with the frenetic energy of millions of people rushing to buy last-minute gifts, embrace loved ones arriving from travel, and share hot meals at crowded tables. But there, at the top of the corporate world, the central air conditioning maintained a constant 18 degrees D, preserving the sterile and perfect environment he had so painstakingly built, and which now, without it, seemed like a mausoleum of glass and steel. He stands up, the abrupt movement making the leather chair creak again like a lament, and walks to the door of his office. His steps are muffled by the grey plush carpet, so thick it seemed to swallow the sound. His executive assistant, an efficient and slightly terrified woman named Mrs. Higgins, had decorated the reception area before leaving for the holidays. There was a 3-meter-tall Christmas tree in the corner, decorated with Swarovski crystal ornaments and navy blue velvet ribbons, the exact colors of the company's brand. It was elegant, symmetrical, expensive, and utterly cold. There was no smell of real pine, no broken ornaments glued on with hot glue by childish hands, no colorful and chaotic mess that his wife, Elena, usually scattered around the house at this time of year. Elena believed that Christmas should be an explosion of color, not an interior design catalog. Damon runs a hand over his face, feeling the 2-day stubble scratch his palm. I need to get out of here. If I look at one more Swarovski crystal reflecting this cold light, I'm going to smash this window with a chair. But where would he go? He couldn't go home. The Hamptons mansion was locked up for the winter, draped in white sheets like ghostly furniture. And the Upper East Side penthouse was too full of vivid memories. Every corner of that apartment held the ghost of her laughter. The scent of her perfume, a blend of vanilla and jasmine, still seemed to linger in the sofa cushions. An olfactory torture he wasn't ready to face today. The bed seemed too big, too cold, so he decided to stay, to work, to bury himself in financial reports, merger analyses, and market projections for the next quarter, until exhaustion overwhelmed him and he could sleep soundly. It was a solid plan. It was what he did best, control the uncontrollable through numbers. But her body had other plans. Biology didn't respect grief. A low, almost painful rumble reminded him that he hadn't eaten anything solid for almost 24 hours. Only black coffee, aged whiskey, and the bitter bile of his own sadness. Damon presses the button for the private elevator harder than necessary. Coffee. I need real coffee. Not this lukewarm, dirty water that the executive office machine makes. I need caffeine to keep my brain working and my heart asleep. He knew the executive cafeteria on the 30th floor was closed. The chef, a temperamental but brilliant Frenchman, had been given the day off to spend the holidays with his family in Lyon. Damon, in a rare moment of humanity that he now regretted, had insisted on it. Go home, he'd said. Nobody should work on Christmas. Irony of fate. Now he was paying the price for his own benevolence. Their only option was the employee break room on the 15th floor, where technical support, maintenance, and the dreaded archive were located. The corporate purgatory, as some directors disdainfully called it. It was the floor that management pretended didn't exist, but without which the company would grind to a halt in 10 minutes. The elevator descends smoothly, swallowing the floors in seconds. When the brushed steel doors open on the 15th floor, the change in atmosphere is immediate, almost physical. There's no plush carpet here to muffle footsteps. The floor is grey linoleum, practical, shiny, and worn by the constant traffic of boots and mail carts. The fluorescent lights hum at a low frequency that would irritate your sensitive ears on a normal day. But today, it felt alive. There was a scent in the air, not of expensive perfume or sterile ozone cleaning, but of cheap lemon cleaning products and, surprisingly, a light, welcoming aroma of cinnamon and old dust. Damon walks down the deserted hallway, his designer shoes making a hollow, lonely sound on the hard floor. The cubicles were empty, but not sterile. They were chaotically and personally decorated by the employees. Cheap handmade paper garlands, photos of dogs wearing Santa hats, mugs with funny sayings like, "Don't talk to me before coffee," or "I survived another meeting." It was messy, it was colorful, it was painfully human. He arrives at the break room. It was a small, cramped room, with a round white table that wobbled slightly if you leaned on it. 4 bright orange plastic chairs, and a row of vending machines that looked like they had survived the Cold War. On the stained Formica counter, a huge, complex, chrome-plated metal industrial coffee maker stared at him like a personal challenge. Damon let out a long sigh, rolling up the sleeves of his white dress shirt to his elbows, exposing the watch that cost more than the annual salary of everyone on that floor. "All right, machine. Let's see what you're made of. I run a billion-dollar empire. I've negotiated hostile mergers in Asia. I can make a damn cup of coffee." He was wrong, terribly wrong. The machine seemed to have a life of its own and a vengeful personality. There were buttons for espresso, lungo, cappuccino, mochaccino, and something mysterious called Choco Bomb. But none of them seemed to respond to logical touch. The lights flashed in random patterns. Damon pressed the black coffee button with excessive force, impatiently. The machine coughed, sputtered like an old engine. A jet of hot steam shoots directly from a side nozzle, hitting your hand. Damon recoils, shaking his burned hand and banging his back against the vending machine. Damn it, who designed this? A sadist. This violates about 10 workplace safety regulations. He tries again, this time more cautiously, as if disarming a bomb. He finds a crumpled paper filter in the cupboard, puts it in the wrong place, spills coffee grounds on the clean counter, and finally manages to get the machine to gurgle something that looked like a dark, viscous liquid. He leans against the counter, watching the slow, agonizing drip of the coffee, feeling pathetic. The most powerful man in the city, defeated by a second-hand appliance on Christmas Eve. Loneliness seemed to laugh at him through the reflection in the chrome metal. It was in this moment of silent humiliation that his stomach decided to protest again, this time with the fury of a caged animal. It wasn't a discreet snore. It was a guttural, deep sound, like thunder in an empty cave. The sound echoed off the white-tiled walls of the break room, amplified by the silence of the building. Damon closed his eyes, wishing he could disappear. And then, a female voice, full of amusement and a lightness he hadn't heard in months, cut through the air behind him. "Wow, I've heard old dot matrix printers make less noise than that. Did you swallow a lion, or are you just trying to scare the Christmas ghosts out of the building?" Damon spins on his heels, his heart racing not from fright, but from surprise at the intrusion. Standing in the doorway of the break room was a young woman. She didn't seem to belong in that grey, serious corporate world. She wore a red knitted sweater, outrageously large for her, with a design of a reindeer whose nose was a fluffy pom-pom that wobbled when she moved. Her brown hair was pulled back in a messy bun on top of her head, with a blue Bic pen stuck in the middle to hold back the unruly strands that insisted on falling across her face. But it was her eyes that captivated him. They were brown, warm as brandy, and gleamed with a mocking, gentle intelligence. There was no fear in them. There was none of the reverent recognition and subservience he usually saw in the eyes of all the employees when they saw him. She didn't know who he was. To her, he was just a hungry man struggling with a coffee maker. Damon clears his throat, trying to regain his CEO posture, straightening his spine even with his hands stained with coffee grounds. It's the machine. It's temperamental, and I don't have the instruction manual. The girl enters the room, walking with a bouncy energy that seemed to defy the tiredness of the hour and the date. She carries a precarious stack of colourful folders in one arm and a faded blue fabric lunchbox in the other hand. Chloe sets the folders down on the wobbly table with a soft thud and smiles at him, a smile that lights up her whole face and makes dimples appear on her cheeks. Temperamental. This machine is a diva, my friend. Her name is Bertha. You have to ask nicely, give her a compliment and maybe promise a cleaning, or she'll spit boiling water on you. Let me guess, first-degree burn on your right thumb. Damon glances at his red hand and then at her, surprised by the precision. Something like that. I just wanted a simple coffee. Chloe shakes her head, laughing softly as she walks over to the machine. She moves with the familiarity of someone who has fought many battles there. She pats the metal side twice affectionately and presses a hidden button on the back that Damon hadn't even noticed. The machine immediately starts working perfectly, the smell of fresh coffee filling the air. Chloe turns to him, crossing her arms and leaning her hip on the counter. You must be the new IT guy, right? Manager Vance said they'd send someone to fix the third-floor server before New Year's because he doesn't want to pay overtime in January. Dan's, isn't it? Or Dave. They always have names starting with D and deep dark circles under their eyes. Damon hesitated. Time seemed to freeze. He had a fraction of a second to correct the mistake, to say, I'm Damon Sterling, owner of this building, this coffee machine, and technically your job, and my name isn't Dan. But the thought of seeing her smile disappear, of seeing the light in those eyes extinguished and replaced by professional panic and hierarchical distance, made him stop. He didn't want to be the widowed and feared CEO now. He just wanted to be a man who didn't know how to make coffee. He wanted to be treated like a normal person, even if only for 5 minutes. Damon leans against the counter, adopting a more relaxed posture, hiding the expensive watch behind his back. Dan. It's Dan, and yes, the server is a complete nightmare. Old codes, bad wiring. Chloe laughs, grabbing her lunchbox and sitting down in one of the orange plastic chairs. Nice to meet you, Dan. I'm Chloe. Trainee at the Dead Files, also known as the girl who spends Christmas organizing papers since 1998 because the boss thinks digitization is witchcraft. Welcome to the club of the socially inept. Damon watched as she opened the lunchbox. The object was old. The blue fabric was worn at the edges, revealing the foam inside, and the zipper looked like it had been hand-stitched several times with a different colored thread, a carefully made but poorly done patch. It was a survival item, not a style item. Chloe pulls out a small, scratched Tupperware container containing half a sad-looking sandwich and a small apple that had seen better days. There was no feast, no leftovers from a lavish Christmas dinner. It was little, far too little for a young woman who seemed to work so many hours and have so much energy. Damon's stomach rumbles again, betraying him mercilessly. This time, Chloe stops with the sandwich halfway to her mouth. She glances at his stomach and then at his face, raising an eyebrow with a feigned, stern expression. Okay, this is serious. Did the server on the third floor eat your lunch? Or are you on that trendy Silicon Valley diet where you feed on fluorescent light and corporate despair? Damon felt his face flush, a feeling of shame he hadn't experienced in decades. I forgot to eat. It's been a long day, and the cafeteria upstairs is closed. Chloe looks at her half-eaten sandwich. Damon sees the quick calculation in her eyes. He sees her hunger. He knows, instinctively, from the thinness of her wrists and the state of her lunchbox, that this is the only food she has for the next few hours, maybe for the whole day. He hopes she eats. It's what any rational person would do. It's what he would do in the business world, protect his scarce assets. But Chloe sighs, a dramatic, theatrical sigh, and breaks the sandwich in half into two unequal pieces. She keeps the smaller one. She holds out the larger piece to him. As Damon feels the weight of his secret grow, balancing the facade of being an IT guy with the protection he wants to offer Chloe, I'd love to know one thing. What part of the world are you watching this story from right now? Leave your comment below. I read and cherish every single one of you. And if you're rooting for this encounter to change their destiny, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. You won't want to miss what happens when the snowstorm outside becomes the least of their problems. Chloe smiles, waving the piece of bread in the air. Here. It's tuna with questionable mayonnaise, the specialty of my 5-star kitchen. It's not much, but it'll stop your stomach from growling at Bertha. She gets nervous at loud noises and could explode. Damon stared at her hand. Those hands were small, the nails short and clean, without nail polish. There was a colorful superhero band-aid on her index finger. She was offering half of everything she owned to a stranger she thought was an IT technician. Damon felt a lump in his throat, a raw emotion he couldn't name. I can't accept this. Chloe. It's your dinner. You need it. Chloe rolls her eyes again, impatiently holding her outstretched hand. Oh, please, Dan, don't be a martyr. It's Christmas. Nobody should go hungry at Christmas, not even the IT guy who probably makes more than me an hour. Besides, if you faint from hunger, I'll have to drag you to the infirmary, and I really don't have the strength in my arms today after carrying 20 boxes of files. Just grab it before I change my mind and eat it all. Damon slowly reached out and took the sandwich. The bread was a little dry around the edges. It wasn't the kind of food he'd touched in years, but when his fingers brushed against hers for a brief second, he felt an electric current run up his arm, a human warmth that had nothing to do with the room's temperature. He takes a bite. The taste was simple, salty, real. It was the best thing he'd eaten in months, better than any gala dinner. Damon chewed slowly, looking at her with a newfound intensity. Thank you. That's amazing. Chloe bites into her tiny piece, looking satisfied. It's the secret ingredient. Hunger and poverty. It improves the taste of anything. She laughs at her own joke, a crystalline laugh that fills the empty glass and, for a moment, banishes the oppressive silence that Damon carried. Damon sat in the chair opposite her, feeling the hard plastic beneath the $3,000 suit. He watched Chloe eat with relish, wiping a crumb from the corner of her mouth with her thumb. She radiated a light of her own, a resilience he envied. As she turns to grab a napkin from her lunchbox, the zipper jams again. Chloe pulled hard, and the lunchbox lid burst open. A folded piece of paper fell from a torn inside pocket. It wasn't a napkin. It was a yellowed piece of notebook paper with shaky handwriting. It landed face up, right in front of Damon. He read it involuntarily before she could catch it. Eat the apple last to stave off hunger before bed. I love you, Mom. Chloe's reaction was instantaneous. The smile vanished. She grabbed the note with defensive speed and stuffed it back into her pocket, her cheeks flushing violently. Chloe forces a smile, closing the lunchbox. Old stuff. Trash. Anyway, Dan, I need to get back to the archives. The year 1999 isn't going to organize itself. She stands up, gathering her folders. The lightness had vanished, replaced by an invisible barrier. She had shown too much. Damon sat there, clutching the remainder of his sandwich, watching her hurry down the hall. He glanced at the food in her hand. She had given half her dinner, following her own mother's rationing instructions, to a stranger. At that moment, Damon Sterling felt something break inside his chest. It wasn't just gratitude, it was shame, and a fierce determination. He couldn't let it go like this, spinning faster than the processors in his servers. He climbs to the 40th floor, but the luxurious penthouse now seemed even more offensive. He looked at the Swarovski crystals and felt nauseous. He needed a new strategy. He couldn't just go down there and write her a $10,000 check. She had pride. She had refused his help when she thought he was Dan. If she knew he was the billionaire owner of the company, she would feel humiliated, or worse, think it was charity or an attempt to buy him off. He needed to be someone she trusted, someone she respected, someone on her same level. He needed to continue being Dan. Damon spent the night awake on the couch in his office. He couldn't sleep thinking about the note, "Eat the apple last." The phrase echoed in his mind. The next day, Christmas Eve, Damon returned. He traded his impeccable Italian suit for a pair of designer jeans that looked ordinary to the untrained eye, even though they cost $500, and a grey wool sweater he wore for sailing. He went down to the 15th floor, armed not with gourmet food or expensive gifts, but with a rusty red toolbox that he had personally retrieved from the maintenance depot, startling the night janitor. He found Chloe in the file room. The place was a labyrinth of tall metal shelves, filled with dusty cardboard boxes. The smell of old paper was intense. Chloe was on top of a rickety aluminum ladder, trying to reach a box on the highest shelf. Her reindeer sweater had been replaced by a simple white t-shirt and a beige cardigan worn at the elbows. Damon leaned against the doorframe, observing her for a moment. She seemed small in the face of those mountains of bureaucracy, but her movements were determined. "Do you need help with that? Or does the staircase also have a name and a difficult personality like Bertha?" Damon asks, his voice echoing softly in the room. Chloe is startled and almost drops the box. She regains her balance, looks down, and a reluctant but genuine smile appears on her lips when she sees him. Chloe descends 2 steps, clutching the box to her chest. "Dan, you're back. I thought Bertha had scared you away forever, or that you'd gotten lost in the server cables. And yes, the staircase is called the Stairway of Death because it shakes more than the global economy on a crisis day." Damon enters the room and grips the base of the ladder firmly. "I'm persistent, Chloe. And I brought tools. I heard around the hallways that there's a chair with a broken wheel here that's trying to assassinate the intern." Chloe descends the remaining steps, wiping the dust from her hands on her jeans. "You fix computers, deal with killer coffee makers, and arrange chairs. A man of many talents." Marcella hesitates, glancing at her desk in the corner of the room. On the table, untouched, was a basket of blueberry muffins and a Starbucks coffee that Damon had anonymously left there earlier, before she arrived. Chloe crosses her arms, her expression turning serious. "If you came to see if I ate that feast you left on my desk, I'm sorry to inform you that intern Kevin downstairs is very happy and probably having a blood sugar spike right now. I gave it to him." Damon didn't look away, maintaining a calm expression. "I noticed. Why didn't you eat, Chloe? It was just a thank you for the sandwich yesterday, nothing more." Chloe sighs, her defensiveness returning to its posture. "Because I don't need $30 thank yous, Dan. That coffee costs more than my hour of work. That sandwich I gave you cost 50 cents. The exchange isn't fair, and I don't like being in debt. Debts become favors, and favors become demands. I learned that early on." Damon nodded, understanding her logic with painful clarity. It was the logic of survival. In her world, nothing was free. Generosity always came with a hidden price tag. Damon shrugs, picking up her broken chair and turning it upside down. Fair enough. I respect that. So, how about a new deal? I'll fix the wheel on your chair, which I know is giving you back pain because you're sitting crooked, and in return, you let me buy you a coffee from the machine. Bad coffee from Bertha for bad manual labor. A fair trade, on equal footing. Chloe studies him. Her eyes scan his face, searching for pity, for condescension, for any sign that he was laughing at her. But Damon maintains a neutral, respectful expression. He's playing her game now. He's offering dignity, not charity. Finally, her shoulders relax. She smiles, a small smile of surrender. Coffee from the machine. No sugar. Because the sugar ran out in 2015 and nobody restocked. Closed, Dan. While Damon knelt on the linoleum floor to fix the chair, something he hadn't done since he was 18 and working in his father's garage before founding the company, he took the opportunity to probe, trying to understand the size of the hole it was in. Damon twists the screwdriver forcefully, struggling against a rusty screw. So, Chloe, I heard Manager Vance yelling in the hallway yesterday about year-end bonuses. Are you planning on traveling somewhere exotic with the fortune he probably won't pay you? Chloe laughs, but it's a dry, humorless sound. Travel. My only planned trip is to dreamland, if my neighbor stops playing drums at 3 in the morning. No, the money was for practical things. Damon stops turning the key. He looks at her over the seat of the chair. Practical things like heating your apartment. The silence in the room becomes heavy and instantaneous. Chloe freezes mid-storage, organizing a stack of papers. She slowly turns to him, her eyes wide with fear. Chloe whispers, her voice faltering, "How do you know that? I haven't told anyone here." Damon realizes his fatal mistake. He said too much. He's read the note. He knew she was saving every penny. Damon thinks quickly, his heart pounding. You mentioned it yesterday, in the break room, while we were talking about Bertha. You said something about your heater breaking down and you being cold. It was a half-truth. She had mentioned the cold, but not the heater specifically. He prayed that she would believe him. Chloe visibly relaxes, releasing the breath she'd been holding. Yes, that's right. I talk too much when I'm nervous. My landlord is a lovely person. He thinks central heating is an unnecessary bourgeois luxury. He said, if I want to fix the old boiler, I have to pay for it myself or leave, and since rents in New York are costing an arm and a leg, I bought extra blankets and sleep with a hat on. She says this lightly, trying to turn the tragedy into comedy, as if it were a fun, urban camping adventure, and not a real threat of imminent eviction in the middle of winter. Damon felt the anger bubbling up again, hot and dangerous, an exploitative landlord, an abusive boss. The world seemed determined to crush this girl, and she kept getting up, smiling and sharing her sandwich. Damon finishes fixing the chair, snapping the wheel back into place with a satisfying click, and stands up, wiping the grease from his hands on his expensive jeans. This isn't right, Chloe. It's illegal. There are tenancy laws. You should report him to the city. Chloe sits in the newly repaired chair and spins around, testing it. She smiles, grateful for the comfort, but her eyes are tired, too old for her age. Chloe looks at him tenderly, as if explaining something to an innocent child. Dan, you're sweet, really. But the real world doesn't work that way for people like me. If I report him, he finds out. If he finds out, he'll evict me for any made-up reason. If I get evicted, I don't have a fixed address. If I don't have an address, HR fires me. If I lose my job, I don't eat. It's a domino effect, Dan. One piece falls, and everything collapses. I just have to hold on until spring. I'm good at holding on. I can handle anything. Damon looks at her. He sees titanic strength in that small body. He sees unwavering honor in her silent struggle, and he realizes, with crystal clarity, that he can't just help. He can't just give her money and walk away. He needs to change her reality without breaking her dignity. He needs to rewrite the rules of the game for her, and he needs to protect her. At that very moment, the door to the file room bursts open. Vance is back, and he doesn't look happy. Vance enters, brandishing a crumpled report like a weapon. Summers! What the hell is this? I said Arial 12 font on the inventory report. This, he shakes the paper in her face, this is Times New Roman. Are you incapable of following simple instructions? Are you stupid or just lazy? He throws the report onto her desk. The pages scatter, falling to the floor like dirty snow. Vance approaches her, aggressively invading her personal space. Maybe you're not cut out for this. Maybe I should call HR now, before the holiday, and tell them to save this week's pay. What do you think? Do you want to spend Christmas in the unemployment line? Chloe shrinks back in her chair, just a little. The fear of eviction gleams in her eyes. She needs that check. She needs to swallow the pill. She needs the silence. But Damon doesn't need to. Damon steps forward, placing himself physically between Vance and Chloe. He's taller than Vance, broader, and, though he's dressed like an IT technician with grease on his hands, he carries the natural authority of a man who takes down empires before breakfast. Damon speaks, his voice low, calm, and utterly lethal. I think you should pick those papers up off the floor, Vance. Now, and apologize for my tone. Vance looks at Damon, blinking, surprised by the audacity of this junior employee. Who the hell are you? The maintenance guy's sweetheart. Get out of my sight before I fire you too for insubordination. You don't know who you're talking to. Damon smiles. Not the gentle smile he gave Chloe, but the shark-like smile he sported on the covers of Forbes when he destroyed a competitor. Damon steps closer, forcing Vance to back away. Try it. I'd love to see you try to fire me. The room falls into absolute silence. Chloe looks from one to the other, terrified, her hands over her mouth. She doesn't know she's witnessing a clash of titans. She only sees Dan, her only friend, about to lose his job because of her. And Damon Sterling, for the first time in years, doesn't care about the corporate consequences. He's found something more valuable than his stock market shares. He's found someone worth fighting for. And the war was only just beginning. Vance blinks, stunned. The silence in the file room is so thick you can hear the hum of the fluorescent light bulb about to burn out. He looks at Damon, then at the generic visitor badge hanging from his belt, and then back at Damon's face. There's something in that man's eyes, a coldness, an absolute certainty that makes Vance's stomach churn, though he can't explain why. Vance takes a step back, nervously adjusting his tie. You're lucky it's Christmas Eve, my friend. I don't have time to deal with the maintenance riffraff right now. I have a dinner with the board. But listen carefully. If I come back here and see a paperclip out of place, Summers, you're out. And you, he points a trembling finger at Damonu. I'll find out who your supervisor is and make sure you never set foot in this building again. Damon maintains his shark-like grin. I'll be waiting eagerly, Vance. Enjoy your dinner. Be careful not to choke on your arrogance. Vance snorts, picks the report up from the floor with feigned dignity, and leaves the room, slamming the door hard enough to make the metal shelves vibrate. As soon as the door closes, the tension in the room breaks like a snapped elastic band. Chloe let out a long, trembling sigh, leaning against the table to keep from falling. She put her hand to her chest. Are you crazy? You're completely crazy, Dan. Do you have any idea what you just did? That man is a monster. He could have called security and thrown you out in the snow. Damon turns to her, his expression instantly softening. The shark disappears, and the gentle Dan returns. Damon shrugs, picking up the toolbox. He's a bully, Chloe. Bullies only attack those who are afraid. When you bare your teeth, they run. Besides, I couldn't let him talk to you like that. Nobody should talk to anybody like that. Chloe looks at him. Her brown eyes are filled with a confusing mix of gratitude, fear, and something more, admiration. No one has ever defended her like this. In her life of survival, she has always been the only one to fight her own battles. Chloe shakes her head, an incredulous smile spreading across her lips. You're a terrible IT technician, you know. IT technicians are supposed to be invisible and fix modems. You just declared war on the regional logistics manager. But thank you. Really, Damon smiles. You're welcome. Now, I think we have an inventory to finish before the monster returns, right? If we finish quickly, maybe we can trick Bertha into giving us hot chocolate. The next 2 hours pass in a blur of work and dust, and surprisingly, laughter. Damon Sterling, the man who negotiated billion-dollar mergers, discovered he was absolutely terrible at manual filing. He put files in the wrong order. He dropped boxes. He sneezed from the old dust. And Chloe loved every second of it. Chloe laughed, snatching a folder from his hand. No, Dan, Z comes after Y, not before. Where did you learn the alphabet? At reverse engineering school. Damon wipes his nose with his sweater sleeve, laughing too. I'm a numbers man, Chloe. Letters are just obstacles between me and math. And who needs paper files in 2025? This should all be in the cloud. Chloe rolls her eyes, climbing the ladder again. The cloud doesn't pay my rent. Genius. The paper does. Now hand me box 4B and try not to drop it on my foot. There was a lightness in the air, a camaraderie Damon hadn't felt in years. There was no flattery. There was no fear. Just two people stuck in a boring job on Christmas Eve, making the moment bearable for each other. When the clock on the wall struck 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Chloe came down the stairs and wiped her hands. Chloe goes to her desk and picks up her blue lunchbox. Union break. I don't belong to a union, but I'm calling a break anyway. Are you hungry? Damon felt his stomach clench. He hadn't eaten anything since the sandwich the night before, but he knew she didn't have much. Damon shakes his head. I'm fine. I ate before coming. Chloe stares at him, that X-ray gaze again. Chloe opens the lunchbox. Liar. Your stomach growled 3 times while you were trying to lift that box. Sit down. She takes the apple out, the same small red apple he saw the day before, the apple from the note. Eat the apple last. Chloe takes a disposable plastic knife from inside her lunchbox. With a precise movement, she cuts the apple in half. The sound of the cut is crisp in the silence of the room. She extends one half to him. Chloe smiles. It's a Fuji. They're the sweetest. And before you refuse out of macho chivalry if you don't eat it, I'll feel bad eating it alone. And you don't want the girl you just saved from the dragon to feel bad, do you? Damon looked at the half-apple in her hand. It was a simple gesture, but it carried immense weight. She was sharing her last reserve of food. She was sharing her survival with him. Damon picks up the apple, feeling the cold peel against his fingers. Thank you, Chloe. They sit on the floor, leaning against a metal shelf, shoulder to shoulder. The floor is hard. The air smells of old paper. But Damon feels that this is the best Christmas feast he's ever had. Damon takes a bite of the apple. It's sweet, crunchy, real life. Damon chews slowly. So why are you here, Chloe? Seriously. A smart girl like you, with that energy, why would you subject yourself to Vance and dead files? Chloe looks at her half of the apple, twirling it in her fingers. The smile fades, replaced by a gentle melancholy. Chloe sighs. Debts, Dan. Old debts. My parents, they got sick. At the same time, cancer. The healthcare system took everything we had, the house, the car, the savings, and when they were gone, all that was left were the bills, and I promised them, on their deathbeds, that I would clear the family name, that I wouldn't let anyone say the Summers don't pay what they owe. She takes a small bite of the apple, as if savoring their memory along with the fruit. Chloe continued, her voice low. That's why I put up with Vance. That's why I eat half a sandwich, because every penny I save is a step toward keeping my promise. It's about honor, you know? It's the only thing they left me, and nobody can take that away from me. Not Vance, not the bank, not the cold. Damon stopped chewing. He felt a lump in his throat. He looked at that small girl in her cheap sweater and saw a giant. He, with his billions, often forgot what honor was. He negotiated, cut costs, fired people to keep the numbers in the black. But she bled for honor. Damon swallowed hard. I'm sorry, Chloe. They must be very proud of you, wherever they are. Chloe smiled sadly. I hope so. And you, Dan? What's your story? Why is a guy who fixes chairs and confronts managers alone on Christmas Eve? Where's his family, his girlfriend? Damon stares at the opposite wall. He needs to lie. He can't say, my wife died and I own all of this. That would be too much. It would be unfair to throw his wealth in her face because of her poverty right now. Damon lowered his eyes, turning the wedding ring he wasn't wearing, but whose mark was still on his finger. She's gone. My wife. Chloe turns to him, her eyes filled with compassion. Oh, Dan, I'm so sorry. Did she pass away? Damon hesitates. It's a moral crossroads. Damon murmurs, no. She left me. Said I worked too much. That I loved work more than her. And maybe she was right. I got so caught up in building things that I forgot to build a life with her. And now, it's too late. It was a lie, but it carried a painful truth. He had truly buried himself in work. And he felt he had failed Elena, even though her death wasn't his fault. Chloe reaches out and touches his arm. The touch is warm, electric through the wool of his sweater. Chloe says softly, it's never too late to fix things, Dan. If you're still here, breathing, you have a second chance. Maybe not with her, but with yourself. You can choose to be different. Look, she points to the repaired chair. You fixed my chair. You stood up for me. The Dan of today seems like a really nice guy. Maybe you should give him a chance. Damon looked at her. At that moment, he wanted to kiss her, not out of lust, although she was beautiful, but out of gratitude, because she had seen something good in him that he himself hadn't seen in a long time. Damon whispers, thank you, Chloe. The moment is broken by the shrill sound of Chloe's desk phone ringing. Chloe jumps up, brushing off the apple crumbs. It's Vance. He must have found a bent paperclip. She runs to answer. Cold case, Chloe speaking. Damon also stands up, tense. He watches Chloe's face change, from apprehension to shock, and then to pure panic. Chloe stammers, what? No, Mr. Vance, we didn't touch the server. We're in the physical archive. The server is on the 3rd floor, I swear. She listens for another second, and then the phone goes silent. She slowly puts it back on the hook, her hands trembling. Damon approaches. What was that? What did he say? Chloe turned to him, her eyes welling up with tears. The main server crashed, the security system, the backups, everything. And he said the access log shows the login was made from here. From my terminal. He said I hacked the system. Damon frowned. That's impossible. His terminal doesn't even have access to the external network. It's a dumb inventory machine. Chloe starts to cry, hot tears streaming down her face. He said security is coming up. He said he's going to call the police. Dan, he's going to arrest me. I'm going to lose everything. The promise, I'm going to break the promise. Damon feels a cold rage take hold of him. Vance set her up. He used remote access to simulate an attack coming from her terminal. It was revenge. Petty and cruel revenge. Damon gripped her shoulders firmly. Look at me, Chloe. No one's going to arrest you. I know what he did. He's bluffing. I'll take care of this. Chloe shakes her head desperately. What? You're just the maintenance guy. They won't listen to you. You have to leave, Dan. Now, if they catch you here, they'll say you're an accomplice. Go. Escape through the emergency stairs. Damon denies it. I'm not going anywhere without you. Chloe pushes him away with surprising force. Go, please. I can't bear the guilt of ruining your life too. I'll manage. I always manage. Go. She was trying to save him. Again. Even with the police on their way, even with her world falling apart, her priority was protecting her friend. Damon opens his mouth to tell the truth, to say I own everything and I order you to stop. But before the first word comes out, zap. The fluorescent lights flicker violently. Once, twice, and then, with a loud electric crackle, everything dies. The file room plunges into utter darkness. The heater's hum stops. The phone dies. The only sound is the wind howling outside, pounding against the windows like a beast trying to get in. They were trapped, in the dark, in the cold, with no way out. Chloe's voice comes from the darkness, small and terrified. Dan? Damon reaches out in the darkness until he finds her hand. He squeezes her fingers tightly. Damon says, his voice firm in the darkness, I'm here, and I'm not letting go. The real storm had arrived, and now, in the darkness, there was no longer a CEO or an intern. There was only a man and a woman, and a long night ahead. The darkness in the file room was no longer just the absence of light. It had become a world apart. The sudden silence of the electronic equipment, the hum of the servers, the click of the thermostats, the murmur of the ventilation created an auditory vacuum that was quickly filled by Chloe's accelerated breathing and the sound of the storm battering New York outside. Damon squeezed her hand in the darkness. Chloe's skin was cold, but his palm radiated a warmth that seemed to be the only real thing in that moment. Damon speaks, his voice low and controlled, cutting through her growing panic. Stay still, Chloe. Let your eyes adjust. The emergency generator should kick in. He waited. 1 second, 2, 10. Nothing happened. No emergency lights flickered in the hallways, no hum of diesel generators surging from the basement. Just the darkness and the cold that was beginning to seep through the glass walls, now that the central heating was dead. Chloe whispers, her voice trembling slightly. He didn't turn on the generator, Dan. Why didn't he turn it on? Damon cursed mentally. He knew exactly why. The total lockdown system that he himself had authorized the installation of last year, in case of detection of a serious cyber threat like the one Vance faked, the building would enter fortress mode. Non-essential power would be cut off to prevent data theft. The problem was that, in the paranoid mind of his security chief, heating and lights on the 15th floor were considered non-essential. Damon slowly lets go of her hand to get his cell phone from his pocket. It seems the security system took Vance's threat a little too seriously. We're on lockdown. He turned on his cell phone's flashlight. The beam of white light cut through the dust in the air, illuminating Chloe's face. She was pale, her large eyes reflecting the light, but there was a determination there that impressed him. She wasn't hysterical, she was calculating. Chloe hugs her own body, rubbing her arms. Lockout means the electronic doors won't open, right? And the elevators are dead. Damon nods, lighting the way to the door. Exactly. We're stuck on the 15th floor until the power comes back on or someone comes to get us out of here. And with this blizzard outside, he didn't need to finish the sentence. They both knew no one was coming. The city was paralyzed. The subway must have stopped hours ago. They were two castaways on an island of concrete and glass. Chloe lets out a nervous laugh. Well, at least Vance can't call the police if the phones aren't working. I guess I'm a temporary fugitive. Damon smiled, admiring her ability to find humor in disaster. Let's get out of here. The file is internal. It'll freeze in minutes. The reception area on this floor has sofas and windows. At least we'll have moonlight or snow. They walked through the ghostly corridors of Sterling Enterprises. The beam of light from Damon's cell phone danced across the empty desks, transforming switched-off monitors into black monoliths. The office, once a symbol of corporate oppression, now resembled a post-apocalyptic scene. When they arrived at the floor's reception area, the scene was breathtaking. The floor-to-ceiling glass walls revealed a New York that Damon had never seen. The city didn't sparkle. The snowstorm was so dense that it obscured the neighboring skyscrapers. Everything was a swirling white and grey, violent and beautiful. The cold, however, was brutal. Without heating, the temperature plummeted. Chloe is visibly shivering, her teeth chattering. It's getting very cold, very fast. Damon scans the room with his flashlight. He sees the faux leather sofas in the waiting area. They were hard, uncomfortable, but they were the best they had. Damon points to the couch. Ali, let's set up camp. You said you had extra blankets in your cubicle, right? The ones you bought because of your landlord? Chloe nods. Yes, they're in the bottom drawer. I'll go get them. While she went to get the blankets, Damon went to the vending machines in the hallway. Old Bertha was dead and silent, but the snack machine next to it had a glass that didn't seem very sturdy. Damon looked at the machine. He owned it all. Technically, it wasn't theft. It was emergency asset reallocation. He took off his designer shoe, mentally thanking himself for swapping Dan's sneakers for something heavier before going downstairs, and with a precise strike of his heel on the bottom corner of the glass, he shattered the structure. 10 minutes later, they were sitting on the reception sofa. The scene was surreal. In the center of the glass coffee table, illuminated by the flashlight of a cell phone pointed upwards, creating a kind of digital bonfire, was the Christmas dinner. 3 packets of onion-flavored potato chips, 2 chocolates that looked like they had expired in the previous administration, and a can of lukewarm orange soda that they were sharing. Chloe was wrapped in a fluffy plaid blanket, only her face and hands showing. Damon sat beside her, wearing his wool sweater, having refused the second blanket so she could use it on her legs. Chloe grabs a French fry and raises it like a champagne glass, a toast to the best Christmas dinner Sterling Enterprises has ever seen. Damon smashes his half of the chocolate bar into her potato, to haute cuisine, and to Vance's silence. They eat. And for the first time in 12 months, Damon tastes the food. It wasn't gourmet, it was too salty, too artificial, but it tasted like company. Damon chews, looking at the snow outside. You know, I used to hate this. Winter. The cold. I always thought it was just a logistical inconvenience, flight delays, decreased productivity. Chloe watches him, her head tilted, and now Damon looked at her. The indirect light from her cell phone softened her features, transforming the girl, tired of the file, into something ethereal. Damon confesses, his voice hoarse. Now I think that's the only honest thing I've seen all year. The storm doesn't pretend to be gentle, it is what it is. Chloe smiles, and there's a sweet sadness in that smile. My mother used to say that snow is like a blanket for the city. It makes everything stop so the earth can rest. Maybe we needed that, Dan. To stop. To rest. Damon felt a tightness in his chest. He needed this. He needed to stop running from his own pain. Damon asks, genuinely curious, what would you do, Chloe, if you weren't here, stuck with an IT technician and French fries? Where would you be if money wasn't an issue? Chloe sighs, resting her head on the sofa. She stares at the dark ceiling, daydreaming. Chloe says softly, I'd be in a small house. It doesn't have to be big, but it would have a fireplace, a real one, and a huge kitchen. I'd be baking pies, not to sell, but to give away. I'd open the door, and the smell of cinnamon would waft out into the street, and my parents would be there, sitting at the table, complaining that the coffee is too hot. She stops, swallowing back tears. Chloe continues, more quietly, but they're not here, and I'm here. And you know what? It's not so bad. At least I'm not alone. Damon feels a single tear roll down her face. Without thinking, driven by an instinct he thought had died with his wife, He raises his hand, his fingers, warm and firm, touch Chloe's cold cheek. He wipes away a tear with his thumb. Her skin is soft, delicate beneath the rough touch he was trying to simulate. Chloe stops breathing for a second. She doesn't pull away. She leans slightly toward his hand, seeking its warmth. Damon whispers, "You're not alone, Chloe. I promise, as long as I'm here, you'll never be alone in the cold again." The wind howls louder outside, as if defying his promise. The temperature in the reception area drops a few more degrees. Damon sees Chloe shivering violently, despite the blanket. Damon moves. There's no room for old-fashioned chivalry when hypothermia is a real possibility. Damon opens his arms. "Come here. The blanket isn't enough. We need to share warmth." Chloe hesitates for only a millisecond. Then she moves. She slides to the side, pressing her body against his. Damon puts his arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. He pulls the blanket over them both, creating a cocoon against the world. The contact is electrical, even through the layers of his sweater, her cardigan. Damon felt every curve of her body. He felt her heartbeat against his ribs, a frantic rhythm that matched his own. Her scent overwhelmed his senses. It wasn't expensive perfume. It was vanilla soap, old paper, and apple. It was the most intoxicating scent he had ever smelled. They remain like that for a long time. The silence returns, but now it's not empty. It's heavy, laden with unspoken words and feelings that grew like the storm outside. Chloe's head rests on his shoulder. Her breathing begins to calm, warmed by his body. Chloe murmurs, her voice sleepy and intimate, "You're hot, Dan. Hotter than you look." Damon chuckled softly, the vibration of his chest passing to hers. "Is that a compliment or a technical observation about my body temperature?" Chloe laughs too, and she lifts her head. Her face is inches from his. In the dim light, her eyes gleam, fixed on his lips. The playfulness dies. The air between them changes. It becomes dense, magnetic. Damon looks at her mouth. He remembers how she split the apple. He remembers how she defended him. He remembers how she smiled when the coffee machine worked. And he realizes, with utter terror, that he's not just pretending to be Dan. He wants to be the man she sees. Damon brings his free hand to her face again, brushing away a stray strand of hair that fell over her eyes. His fingers trace the line of her jaw, down to her neck, feeling her accelerated pulse there. Damon whispers, his voice faltering with emotion, "You make me forget it's winter outside, Chloe. You make me forget the world is cold." Chloe parts her lips slightly. Her breath brushes against his face, warm and sweet. Chloe whispers back, "Then don't look outside. Look at me." Damon leans in. The corporate world, the lies, the grief, the secret identity, it all disappears. Only gravity remains, pulling him toward her. Their noses touch. The warmth of her lips is millimeters from his. He closes his eyes, ready to cross the line, ready to surrender to this new beginning. Bzzzt, bzzzt, bzzzt. The vibrating sound is loud and aggressive in the silence. It comes from the inside pocket of Damon's pants, not the cheap phone Dan would use, but the state-of-the-art encrypted smartphone that only 3 people in the world had the number for. The bubble bursts. Chloe jumps back, startled, as if she'd been electrocuted. Damon freezes. His heart, which had been beating with desire, now beats with panic. He fumbles in his pocket, feeling the device vibrate against his thigh. He pulls out his phone. The screen glows brightly in the darkness, illuminating his face with an accusing blue light. On the screen, a name flashes in urgent capital letters. "Security Chief, red line." Chloe looks at her phone, then at Damon. She frowns, confused. Chloe asks, her voice trembling, "Dan, why do you have a phone that looks like it costs more than my apartment? And who's the head of security?" Damon looked at the screen, then at her. The magic was broken. Reality, cold and brutal as a New York winter, was back, and he had a choice to make: answer and reveal everything, or ignore it and keep the lie alive for a few more precious hours. But the phone kept ringing, and the expression on Chloe's face was changing from desire to suspicion. The morning light didn't enter the archive room gently. It stormed in. The winter sun, reflected off the pristine snow that blanketed the New York skyscrapers, cut through the darkness of the room like a cold, white blade. Damon opened his eyes, feeling the weight of his sleeping arm beneath Chloe's head. For a second, just one blessed second, he forgot who he was. He forgot the $3,000 phone that had vibrated all night in his pocket. He forgot the lie. He was just a man waking up next to the woman who had made him laugh for the first time in a year. Chloe stirred, murmuring something unintelligible against his chest. The scent of vanilla and apple was still there, now mixed with the smell of a sleepless night and forced intimacy. Damon glanced at his wristwatch. 7:15 a.m. The storm had passed. The silence of the howling wind was replaced by the distant hum of the city waking up, clearing the snow, returning to its unforgiving life. He knew he had minutes, maybe seconds. Damon gently brushed a strand of hair away from her face. "Chloe, wake up. We need to talk. Before that," he wanted to say. Before they arrive, he meant to say, "I'm Damon Sterling, and I'm sorry." He wanted to tell the truth on his terms, holding her hand, promising that nothing would change what happened in that dark room. But fate and Sterling Enterprises' security protocol don't wait for tender moments. Chloe woke with a start, her eyes wide with panic. What was that? Is that Vance? Did he call the police? Damon sat down, his body tense. No, it's not the police. Before he could explain, the door to the file room was flung open, not opened, thrown wide open. Two men in black suits and headphones entered with military precision, scanning the room with their eyes. Behind them came a tall, grey-haired man with the expression of someone who hadn't slept in 3 days. It was Marcus Stone, the company's chief global security officer. Stone saw Damon sitting on the floor, covered by an old coat, next to a disheveled female employee. He didn't blink. He didn't judge. He just sighed with relief, as if he had defused a nuclear bomb. Stone walked straight up to Damon, completely ignoring Chloe's presence, as if she were part of the dusty furniture. Stone speaks, his voice deep and formal. "Mr. Sterling, thank God. The board is in a panic. We lost contact with you 12 hours ago. Code Red protocol has been activated. The helicopter is on the roof, waiting to take you to the crisis meeting." Time stood still. The air rushed out of Chloe's lungs as if she'd been punched in the stomach. She looked at Stone, then she looked at Damon. Dan, the IT guy who didn't know how to make coffee, the man who fixed her chair, the man who shared the apple and said it made him forget about winter. Mr. Sterling. Chloe stepped away from him. It wasn't a step. It was a visceral recoil, as if she had discovered she was sleeping next to a venomous snake. She slammed her back against a metal shelf, making the boxes rattle. Damon stood up, ignoring Stone's outstretched hand to help him. "Stone, shut up. Get out. Now." Stone frowned, confused. "Sir, the investors are down there. The media is speculating that you've had a breakdown or been kidnapped. We need to show you now. We brought a clean suit." One of the security guards stepped forward, extending an impeccably styled suit jacket toward Damon. The scene was grotesque. Damon, surrounded by his servants, being treated like royalty, and Chloe, huddled in the corner with her crumpled reindeer sweater and worn boots, realizing the insurmountable chasm that existed between them. Chloe let out a laugh, a short, broken, hysterical laugh. Chloe whispers, her voice trembling with a pain Damon had never heard before. "Sterling, Damon Sterling, the owner, the billionaire. Damon turned to her, his hands raised in surrender, panic glistening in his eyes. "Chloe, please, let me explain. It's not what it looks like." Chloe stared at him. The warm, mocking eyes he loved were cold now, dead. Filled with tears, she refused to let fall. Chloe shakes her head. "It's not what it looks like. You were just kidding, weren't you?" She points to the open blue lunchbox on the floor, where the remains of the rusted apple still lay. What was this? A social experiment? Let's see how the common people live. You wanted to see the poor girl share her food. You wanted to laugh at my story about the broken heater. Damon takes a step toward her, desperate. "No, never. I never laughed at you. I was running away, Chloe. I was running away from my life, from my grief, and I found you. And you were the only real thing that happened to me in months. I wanted to be Dan, because Dan could talk to you without you looking at my bank account." Chloe wipes away an angry tear with the back of her hand. "You don't understand, do you? You think this is about money." She pushes herself away from the shelf and walks toward him. Stone makes a move to block her, but Damon shoots such a murderous look at the head of security that the man recoils. Chloe stops in front of him. She is small, fragile, exhausted. But in that moment, she seemed bigger than him. She had the dignity he had lost in the lie. Chloe speaks, each word cutting like glass. "I shared my only meal with you, Damon. That apple and that sandwich were all I had for the day. I shared it because I thought you were hungry. I thought we were equals. I thought we were two survivors trying to get through Christmas." She takes a deep breath, her voice faltering. "But you weren't hungry. You could buy this whole building if you wanted a snack. You took my generosity, the only thing I had to give, and turned it into a joke. You stole my honor, Damon. You made me pity the most powerful man in the city." Damon feels her words like physical stabs. He opens his mouth, but nothing comes out because she was right. He had stolen her charity. Chloe looks around, at the security guards, at the expensive suits, at his world invading hers. Chloe smiles, a sad, final smile. "Congratulations on the disguise, Mr. Sterling. You fooled that idiot from the cold case perfectly. I hope the story will entertain your friends at the country club." She turns around and walks towards the door. Damon shouts, "Chloe, wait, don't go like that. I can fix this. I can fix your heater. I can give you the job you deserve. I can—" Chloe stops at the door. She doesn't turn around. Chloe says quietly but audibly, in the deadly silence, "You can't fix what you broke, Damon. Keep your money. I don't want anything from you." She runs down the hallway. Damon makes a move to run after her, but the main elevator opens at the end of the hallway. It wasn't just about increased security, it was the worst possible nightmare. A group of 5 men and women in suits, members of the board of directors, stepped out of the elevator, led by a senior investor named Mr. Gecko. They saw Damon and swooped down like vultures. Mr. Gecko shouted, "Damon, there you are." The stock dropped 4% at the opening. The storm damaged the server tower in Jersey. "We need a statement now. What were you doing here? Why are you dressed like a beggar?" They formed a human wall around him. Damon tried to push them away, tried to see over their shoulders. But Chloe had already turned the corner. She had gone for the emergency stairs. Damon felt his blood boil. The noise of their voices, stocks, profit, media, image, sounded like irritating static. Damon roared. It wasn't a CEO's shout. It was a primal roar coming from the depths of his tormented soul. Damon yells, his voice echoing off the hallway walls. "Shut up! All of you! Get out of my way!" The hallway fell instantly silent. The investors recoiled in shock. Damon Sterling never shouted. Damon Sterling was ice, but the man in front of them was pure fire. Damon stared down the empty hallway where Chloe had disappeared. He looked at the floor of the filing room. The old blue lunchbox was there, abandoned, open, empty. He walked over to her, ignoring the terrified stares of the council. He bent down and picked up the lunchbox with a bow, as if it were a sacred relic. He ran his finger over the faded fabric, over the zipper he himself had seen jam. Stone approached cautiously. "Sir, the helicopter." Damon stood up, clutching his lunchbox to his chest. His eyes were dry, but they burned with a newfound determination. Damon spoke, his voice low and dangerous. "Cancel the meeting. Stone, send those vultures home, and find out where Chloe Summers lives." Now, Stone hesitated. "But sir, the protocol, the actions." Damon turned to him, and there was something in his gaze that made the head of security swallow hard. Damon said, "I don't care about the stocks. I lost the only thing of value that was in this building, and I'm going to get it back, even if I have to burn this company to the ground to do it." He walked toward the private elevator, taking the blue lunchbox with him, leaving behind a bewildered board and an empty room that still smelled of apples and regret. A week had passed since the storm. 7 days, 168 hours. And for Damon Sterling, each second felt like a grey eternity. He was back on top. His Italian suit was impeccable. His beard was trimmed. The office on the 40th floor was, once again, controlled at 18 degrees. But something fundamental had changed. The silence was no longer just empty. It was an accusation. Damon stood by the window, gazing out at the city as it prepared for the new year. But he didn't see the test fireworks or the lights. He saw only a pair of disappointed brown eyes and an empty blue lunchbox on his mahogany desk. Ms. Higgins enters the room, hesitantly, holding a tablet. "Mr. Sterling, Mr. Vance is here. He said you scheduled a performance review meeting." He seems quite confident. Damon turns around. His eyes are cold, but not dead like before. There's a fire in them now, the fire of justice. Damon adjusts his shirt cuffs. "Send him in, Mrs. Higgins, and please, leave the door open. I want the whole floor to hear this." Vance enters the room as if he owns the place. He walks with an arrogant swagger, a smug smile on his face. He believes his tip about the security breach has earned him points with the big boss. Vance extends his hand. "Mr. Sterling, an honor to finally meet you in person. I must say, the security team acted quickly thanks to my alert. That intern, Summers, always knew she was trouble." Damon doesn't shake the outstretched hand. He simply points to the chair in front of his desk. Damon says, his voice soft and dangerous, "Sit down, Vance." Vance winks, withdrawing his hand, and sits down, crossing his legs. "Of course. I imagine you want to discuss my promotion to regional director. I have some ideas on how to cut costs in the personnel department." Damon picks up a thin folder from the table. He opens it slowly. Damon interrupts him. "I've been reviewing the server access logs, Vance, and the security camera footage from the 15th floor." Vance's smile falters. "Ah, standard procedure, of course." Damon continued, without taking his eyes off him. "I saw a manager yelling at a female employee over a font. I saw a man sabotaging the very system to frame a girl who earns in a year what you spend on dinners in a month. And I saw a coward using his small amount of power to crush the very person he should be protecting." Vance pales. He tries to laugh nervously. "Sir, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Discipline is necessary." Damon stands up. He places his hands on the table and leans forward. The aura of power emanating from him is suffocating. Damon says, "In this company, Vance, we value profit, yes. But from today onward, we value something more, honor, and you have none." Damon throws the briefcase toward Vance. It slides across the table and lands in his lap. Damon concludes, "You're fired. No severance package, no letter of recommendation. And if I ever find out you've mistreated any other employee in this city, I'll use every penny of my fortune to make sure you never manage even a lemonade stand again. Get out of my building. Now." Vance opens his mouth, closes it, grabs the briefcase, and runs off, tripping over his own feet. Outside, in the hallway, a murmur of approval can be heard from the assistants and secretaries. Damon takes a deep breath. The first part of the redemption was complete. The dragon was slain. Now he needed to save the princess. But unlike in fairy tales, she wasn't in a tower. She was in Queens, and she didn't want to be saved. Damon Sterling, the man who traveled only by helicopter or armored limousine, was on the platform of Metro Line 7. He had dismissed the driver. He had left his Italian suit at the office. He was wearing jeans, heavy boots, and the same grey wool sweater he wore when he was Dan. In his hands, he held his repaired blue lunchbox. He entered the crowded train car. The smell was a mixture of sweat, disinfectant, and greasy food. The noise was constant. People pushed and shoved, tired, returning home after double shifts. Damon gripped the cold metal railing. He looked around. He saw a mother trying to get her child to sleep in her lap. He saw a man in a construction uniform sleeping, standing up. He saw Chloe's reality. For months, he lived in his ivory tower, believing his pain was the only thing that mattered. But there, in that swaying train car, he saw true strength. Chloe made this journey every day. She faced this chaos, the cold, the abusive boss, the hunger, and still had room in her heart to share an apple and smile. He felt small, and for the first time, that was a good thing. The train stopped at Jackson Heights Station. Damon got off and walked through the streets covered in dirty snow. He looked up the address that Stone had very reluctantly obtained. It was an old red-brick building with a rusty fire escape out front, the kind of place real estate agents call with potential, but which really means falling apart. Damon climbed the 3 flights of stairs. The smell of cooked cabbage permeated the hallway. He stopped in front of door 3B. The paint was peeling. He raised his hand to knock. His hand trembled. He had negotiated billion-dollar mergers without breaking a sweat, but knocking on that door terrified him. He hit him 3 times. The door opened. Chloe was there. She looked tired. Her eyes were swollen, as if she had been crying recently. She was wearing an oversized sweatshirt and holding a cardboard box, as if she were packing things. When she saw who it was, the box fell from her hands. Chloe whispered, "Dan." Then reality hit. Her expression hardened, and she crossed her arms. "I mean, Mr. Sterling, what are you doing here? Did you come to buy the building, to demolish it, and build a parking lot?" The sarcasm was there, but it was a fragile armor. She was wounded. Damon didn't try to come in. He stayed in the hallway, respecting her space. Damon said, his voice hoarse, "No, I came to return something I stole." He held out the blue lunchbox. Chloe looked at the object. The zipper was new. The fabric had been cleaned, but the marks of wear remained, preserving its history. Chloe hesitated. "I don't want this. It's trash, like everything I have seems to be for you." Damon stepped forward. "It's not trash, Chloe. It's the most valuable thing I've ever held. Please, accept it." Driven by reluctant curiosity, Chloe picked up the lunchbox. It was light, but there was something inside. She unzipped the zipper, which slid open perfectly now. Inside, there was no money. There was no apology check. There was a bright, perfect red apple and a cream-colored envelope with the Sterling Enterprises letterhead, but with her name handwritten on it. Chloe looked at him, confused. Damon gestured toward the envelope. "Read it, please." Chloe opened the envelope. Her hands were trembling. She took out 2 pieces of paper. The first one was a contract, but it wasn't an internship contract. Position, Director of Corporate Culture and Well-Being. Salary, an amount that made her eyes widen. Benefits, comprehensive health plan, housing allowance, immediate signing bonus. The second piece of paper was a letter, written in Damon's angular, strong handwriting. Chloe began to read aloud, her voice choked with emotion. "Chloe, You asked me why I lied. I said I was running from ghosts, but the truth is I was running from life. I died along with my wife a year ago. The man who descended into that dead file was just an empty shell. But then you offered me half of your sandwich. You laughed at my incompetence. You defended me when I had nothing to gain and everything to lose. You didn't just feed my stomach, Chloe. You fed my hope. You reminded me that honor isn't found in Swarovski crystals or stock market shares. It's about sharing what little you have. It's about protecting a friend in the dark. This contract isn't a payment, it's a request. Sterling Enterprises needs you. I need you. Not to serve coffee, but to teach us how to be human again. As for the heater, I bought the building. Rent is waived for all tenants for the next 5 years. Consider this a belated Christmas bonus. With honor, Damon, the guy who doesn't know how to make coffee. Chloe lowered the letter. Tears streamed freely now. She looked at Damon. He wasn't smiling arrogantly. He stood there in the cold Queen's hallway, his heart in his throat, waiting for the verdict. Chloe sniffled, wiping her face with her sweatshirt sleeve. You bought the building? That's over the top, Dan. Way over the top. Damon gave a shy half-smile. I'm a billionaire, Chloe. Exaggeration is my defense mechanism, and the central heating will be installed tomorrow. Chloe laughed. It was a wet sound, somewhere between crying and joy, but it was the most beautiful sound Damon had ever heard. She dropped her lunchbox and the letter on a small table by the entrance and looked at him. Chloe said, You know you're going to have to learn how to make your own coffee if I take this job, right? I'm not going to be your babysitter. Damon nodded solemnly. I intend to take an intensive course with Bertha. Chloe shook her head, feigning disapproval, but her feet were already moving. She took one step, then another, and then she ran toward him. Damon caught her in midair, spinning her around in the narrow hallway. He buried his face in her neck, inhaling that scent of vanilla and real life that had brought him back from the abyss. They separated just enough to look at each other. Damon whispered, Merry Christmas, Chloe. Chloe smiled, and this time there was no sarcasm, just light. Chloe replied, Happy New Year, Damon, and he kissed her. It wasn't a cinematic, technical and cold kiss. It was an awkward, urgent kiss, full of promises and gratitude. It was a kiss that sealed not just a romance, but a partnership, a pact of love and honor. The office on the 40th floor was different. The temperature was a pleasant 22 degrees. There were photos of employees on the walls. There was laughter coming from the meeting room. Damon Sterling was sitting at his desk, reviewing the plan to expand the scholarship program for employees, children. He paused for a moment and looked at the shelf behind him. The Swarovski crystals were still there, sparkling with their cool perfection, but in the center of the shelf, in a prominent place, illuminated by a special light, was an object that didn't match the luxurious decor. An old, patched-up blue fabric lunchbox. Damon smiled at her. He picked up the phone and dialed an internal extension, Director of Culture, Chloe speaking. Damon leaned back in his chair, finally feeling at home. Hi, this is the IT guy. I'm hungry. Are there any apples left? Chloe's laughter on the other end of the line was the best music he could hear. For you, Dan, always. But remember, eat the apple last. It's the best part. Tell me here in the comments where you are listening to me from. Subscribe to the channel. Activate the bell for new stories.